get to mainnet and getting that sequenced, and a lot of interesting, fun discussions, like the last discussion before a little brain candy session we did was upgrading the network, making sure we have a good solution for the inevitable network upgrades and things like that. But I'll go ahead and let Kelly take over from here, and then we have some fun and exciting things to talk about after that. I'm going to mute.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? That's painful. I can't go. I will. All right, can you guys hear me better now? Thank you.
That is a bit better.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to update number 71. Basically, we are here in Varkov doing work with the team, and it is so much fun. It's fun to see people in person, and it is fun to get a lot of work done. And so the update is fairly light today. But just to call out, we are this week not working in a sprint. Our priorities are absolutely planning sprints for the next 12 weeks. That's the work that we're doing this week. We are still working towards the release of Node 9.4, and you can see the information about that in the release plan. Mercury requirements, as always, are available in Features MD. We are discussing those as part of our work here, and planning to make some changes related to those. Nothing big, nothing really significant, but basically clarifying what that feature is and what you can expect from it. Testnet is up. It continues to be up. We continue to do the things that are needed to do until hopefully when we are able to run with the renovation of RSpace. So you can expect to see nodes go down from time to time, but they're popping right back up. The SRE team is always very much on top of that and really grateful for their work there. Community tests, we do plan to run a community test tomorrow. During our last community test, we talked about giving some updates on questions that were asked during that session, and we plan to give those updates. We don't plan to walk through any testing scenarios tomorrow, so consider it office hours where we will follow up on questions asked last week, as well as address any other questions that you might have related to the use of testnet. Happy to also answer questions about the development plans and progress in that space. Everyone's welcome. We love to have our people come who are regulars, but if you're a newcomer and interested in learning more about the platform, this is absolutely the place for you to come and get more information and get started with Node. So again, a little bit different because we are working together in a dev retreat this week, but I do want to call out some highlights. Number one, we work in a fishbowl, and you are always welcome to see what we do. There's a link here to our development team retreat. You can follow that link. You can see our agenda. You can see our notes pages. Please be kind. The notes pages are a little rough. Sometimes we're capturing things very quickly, but the intent is to go back and revise and to have a good record of what we did here, because the work that we're doing here is going to lead us through the next 3 months. And so that documentation is really important. Some highlights of what we're working on. Artur gave us an excellent presentation yesterday about the developer's experience using Rolang and building dApps on the platform. And so we have some plans related to rolling sugaring. Greg, I think, shared a link about that in the developer channel on Discord. So you can certainly take a look at that. Also addressing the issue of bloat in the tuple space. Rolang creates some bloat, meaning the tuple space gets really full, and we have some strategies and plans now after our conversation yesterday for how and when to address that. And that was very effective work for the team yesterday. Hardening planning. So the idea of hardening is that once the platform is feature complete and we can say this is what Mercury will look like, we have to go into a fair amount of work to do due diligence and test and validate that it does all the things we want it to do, and it does it over and over again, and it's reliable and secure and all that good news. So we spent a fair amount of time talking about all the things that will go into our hardening effort. The SRE team has spent most of the day cloistered together trying to think very deeply about how we're going to be able to do that, and to come back tomorrow. That's our first thing on the agenda tomorrow, is to address some of the questions that the SRE team is coming back with, and take a look at that plan to see how we're going to go through the hardening phase once Mercury is feature complete, which we are very much closing in on. We talked this morning about the plan to address orphaned blocks and block merging, and have some good ideas on how to make progress in that space. We've done a little bit of adjustment on how we are organized as a team. We're attempting to organize for efficiency and productivity, and what that means. Very clearly what it meant early on was that we were going to move Pavel over to work with the consensus team and help doing some support there. And then kind of surprisingly, it also turned out that Kent's going to be staying in Poland for a while. He's gracious to stay in Poland for several weeks into May to help be in the same time zone. We really benefit a lot from when that happens, and also to be close to not only Pavel, who's helping to support consensus, but also our rolling team where consensus touches rolling. So really grateful, number one, for Kent's willingness to do that, and looking forward to benefiting from having him closer, certainly in the same time zone and in person with some other members on the team. We also we went through the mental exercise today of upgrading a network in both forking and non-forking scenarios, and trying to figure out what the acceptance criteria for that might be and what that might look like. There's still work to do in that space, but it's an important first conversation for us, and we have a plan for how to continue having that conversation. And then spent most of the afternoon today talking about the multi-sig vault design, and you can take a look at that if you follow the link to our development team retreat. There's a link to that design. You're welcome to take a look. We have some really good agreement on what's going to happen, how we're going to do it, and we're ready to get started working on that. So let me just pause there. Are there any questions about what we're doing this week, or what I just said?
So Kelly, I wanted to provide a little bit of color on some of these things. One of the things that we talked about with respect to space consumption in our space is that right now we're storing the AST that's generated by this parsing processing of row line. So right now that AST is very large. What was the, for just a SIN of the spring test? So 1.7 kilobytes. Oh, okay. All right. Well, you guys are so far away. Come on up. So we were having this discussion with Dom, Lukash, and Artur about that. So what seems to be reasonable at this point is to have a binary representation for that sort of thing. That should have been contemplated from the beginning, but we were moving at a pretty rapid pace. So that will address a lot of the space construction. And then the other thing is, of course, how we deal with the list stuff. You want to describe that a little bit? This is Dom, who's been working on RSpace quite a bit.
It's my fault. So the gist of it is that we currently serialize the data as a list, and we serialize each update as a list. This can be optimized. This needs some revamp of how the implementation is done, but that's part of the current revamp. So we're actually addressing it at the moment. And yeah, that's basically it. The design was aimed at a different usage pattern, which doesn't align with the current one, and we're able to address it, thankfully, pretty easily with the development design.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just sort of, the part of the reason I'm doing this is I just want people to see the faces. I mean, these are the people who are, building the code, and I think that a lot of times people, they only see Kelly or Chris or myself, and they don't get to see the whole team here that's been working day in, day out to make sure that the network is of highest quality and the software is of highest quality. Let's see, what else do we cover there? I'm trying to go. I want to go back to your list. Kelly, do you have that?
We talked about sugaring, syntactic sugaring.
Oh,
We talked about
oh yeah, that was another good one. So Artur proposed a really, really nice. So this is Artur. You want to come to the camera? Proposed a really, really nice extension that's very much in the spirit of what we're trying to do with the Rolang design. So essentially, the idea for some people who are interested is that monads are the new objects, or at least applicative functors are the new objects. So at the heart of the language design is a for comprehension that can be interpreted in lots of different ways, where for comprehension is just basically syntactic sugar wrapped around your sort of traditional map, flat map, etc. And so Artur has taken that very much in the direction of the applicative do notation of Haskell, while still staying sort of faithful to the Rolang approach. So it provides some really nice compression of code that's currently unreadable. So we're sort of kicking that design around and seeing when we can sequence that work in so that the code can be cleaned up and a lot more maintainable and readable. What were some of the other?
We talked about the multi-sig wallet this afternoon. We talked about just the strategies for going through an upgrade, both working and not working, and how we're going to get that to them.
Right.
Oh, yeah, we had a group working pretty much 24/7 on slashing.
That's right. So that was Kent and Pavel, right?
Ovidiu.
And Ovidiu. So where'd you guys get with respect to that? I heard kids say slashing's all done.
He's busy coding.
He's now expired.
Of course. Cool. So any questions? Any questions for any members of the community? Well, I mean, here's the brain trust. If you want to speak with folks, these are the folks that are making it work. So I noticed that Kelly, can you open the chat? Because
Yeah, I've got it. I'm looking.
Okay.
Rich says it's really nice to see the team. I think so too.
Okay. Well, if there's not anything else from the community, there are some interesting and fun, exciting developments that I will touch base on because I need to. But are we done with the
I'm hopeful.
Okay, yeah, I think we're done with that part of the update. So now I need to give some updates with respect to what's happened recently. We had a board meeting. Yes, it's yesterday for you. Sorry, I had to do some time zone calculations. And the board voted unanimously to cut Pythia out of the Rock to Rev conversion. So it's been long discussed. And finally, it came to a head, and that vote passed unanimously. So we discovered that within a few hours of that, Pythia had pushed a bunch of Rock to KubeCoin. So we have spoken with KubeCoin, and they have frozen, per our request, all Rock pairs. So there's no trading on KubeCoin until we get certain matters resolved. So we're in the midst of getting those resolved with KubeCoin. With luck, we should be able to resume the trading pairs without Pythia being able to dump on the market. So that's the established aim. Otherwise, there will be other solutions that we will consider. But currently, that's the situation. So if you're trying to trade on KubeCoin and you discover that you can't, that's because, first of all, it was not an exchange we supported, right? We always we always have said trading is not the way to think about this asset. But if you are trading on KuCoin, that's been disabled until we get the matter resolved. Any questions about that?
Greg, I'm really glad you addressed that because obviously some members have noticed, and so hearing that it was an action from the co-op is vital. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just like this has been brewing for quite some time. I will say here in the public forum that I worked extensively with Pythia up through April to try to get them to finish the draft of the agreement with the co-op, April of 2018, to get them to finish. They took actions which completely alarmed the board. The board insisted that I write a letter to Pythia demanding the rocks back. We were able to walk us back from that cliff. I worked extensively with Pythia all the way up through August, and we signed a strategic partnership agreement in the August timeframe of 2018. And then Pythia decided just a couple of months later not to honor that agreement, and again returned to this position that somehow they have a right to those rock without having delivered anything. And so after consulting extensively with several legal resources, including our representation Miller Nash, and collecting forensic evidence that was done by Mark Pui and others, the best remedy seems to be to cut them out of Rock to Rev. I can say that from the time that Robbie came on board, we again tried to approach Pythia. We spent several weeks again with Pythia, and they said to us unequivocally that of the 4 options that we were able to explore, the one that they liked the best was that the co-op find a buyer for their rock, and they would then use the proceeds of that to cover operational expenses for Pythia. Now, that was incredibly distasteful for the co-op, but I found a buyer who would be willing to help the co-op recover some of those rock as a part of that sale. And again, Pythia responded negatively, even though that was their top option in the last round of negotiations to that offer. So that left us no option but to cut them out. So I wish I could understand the behavior. I did my level best. I worked with them for 2 solid years to try to find a resolution, and ultimately I was left with no options. Any other questions about the history or context here?
I would just want to say one thing, Greg, which is I believe the rocks moved on the 6th, and you had your board meeting yesterday. So I just wanted to correct you on that, the time frame of when those recent rocks have been moved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We spotted the motion. I don't believe that there was much activity, but I could be wrong. And immediately took swift action. And then, so the other exciting news is that is Ian on the call? Ian, you wanna speak to your change of circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, I recently stepped down from the board a couple days ago. I will be staying on to help the co-op in other capacities, and I'm still a very strong supporter of the project.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so people can talk to Ian privately if they want any further information. We'll miss Ian and thank Ian very much for his service. As I understand it, you're still going to remain in your Chief Security Officer role. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd like to continue on with doing some systems administration, and membership administration, and wherever I can help.
Very good. Awesome. Fantastic. Any questions about that? Okay. Any other questions about anything at all related to the project?
I have a question about tainted rock that the co-op isn't honoring, and what happens to people if they end up with some of this tainted rock?
So the only tainted rock that we're taking it from the from the snapshot as of the 6th, whenever we took the vote. It's not going backwards in time. So the only rock we would have to worry about is any rock that made it through into KubeCoin trades as of the 6th. And we can track that.
Well, what about people who buy on Ether Delta?
Again, you know the situation. Don't do it.
Question is, are you saying the snapshot for the swap is done?
No, not the swap. The snapshot for the Pythia balances that we're not honoring. Yeah. So,
Greg, I'm a little confused. You're saying don't do it, but the world, KuCoin is a public platform.
well,
And
you can't trade on KuCoin.
I'm sorry.
All of the rock pairs have been disabled on KuCoin right now until we resolve matters. And then if matters get resolved in the way that we hope, then you will be able to trade on KuCoin again.
Okay, I'm just saying it's not just KuCoin, it's, decentralized exchange. World's a big place.
So again, you can track the Ether addresses out of Pythia's wallet. I just posted it in the chat. So
Yeah, now I'm saying what happens.
So if they're moving rock, then you would know they're moving rock, and then there's nothing you can
Hold
do.
on. Can I finish? I'm a guy sitting somewhere in the world. I know nothing about RChain, but it looks like, hey, I'll just buy some of this.
I think we're only talking about Pythia's rock. We're not talking about the rest of the market.
Okay, I thought the question started as what happens if somebody inadvertently ends up with rock from Pythia unbeknownst to them.
So we're treating it as a scam address, and we'll do our best to notify everyone. If Pythia continues to sell, they know they're selling to unsuspecting people who will not be able to get their rock back. So they're effectively scamming people at this point.
Okay.
Again, I mean, once it hits a hot wallet on exchange, unless you have a communication with that exchange, there's no way to recover funds. In this case, we stopped trading on KuCoin, right? So if those funds hit a hot wallet, guess what? You can track where they went because there's KYC on that exchange. The rest of the exchanges, the Ether, Delta, IDEX, you can't track that. So we can only do what we're doing. Does that make sense?
I mean, it does. I would feel really bad for somebody who bought rock because they heard about this project, loved it, and then they bought it on some decentralized exchange, and then they end up getting screwed.
Yeah. So the best thing to do at this point is to come and buy rock from the co-op. So that gets to the next. I mean, we feel bad too, trying to make the best of a bad situation, right? The situation is, we did our level best to provide Pythia with ways out. We bent over backwards to provide Pythia with ways out. They've left us no options. It's not the best option for the community, but the best option for the community would be that Pythia delivered the companies that they promised to deliver on the strategic partnership that they signed. That would have been the best for the community. But certainly it's not good for the community if Pythia suddenly has 58 million rock that is worth lots and lots of money for having delivered nothing to the platform. Right? That would be a terrible, terrible situation. It's also terrible for investors. Every single investor I've talked to, they look at the Pythia wallet and they say, well, if I invest and the rock goes up, what prevents Pythia from coming in and dumping on the market? So that has been a conversation that I have had hundreds of times at this point. So by excluding Pythia, we have been able to open up conversations with investors. And the capital group that's joined us, that was one of their primary concerns. And this was a part of addressing those concerns. We first offered Pythia way out another way. When Pythia decided not to do that, then this was our only option left.
There are also rocks out there. I've noticed there's movement from Barcelona. Is it possible for those to be taken out of the market?
They're all being tracked. They're all being tracked. And yes, they won't be honored. We said that many times. And every time they move it, we mark every single address that they go as scammer address. Right. So you go to Etherscan, and you'll see that the addresses with significant rock from Barcelona have been marked. Right. We have alerts, and I heartily ask the community to keep an eye on this as well.
Another topic. Will we see? Was there any other business from yesterday's meeting? And we got in the habit of enjoying notes, drafts within a couple of days of a meeting. What can we expect there?
Yeah, so the other thing is we appointed Lilia as secretary. It doesn't make her a director, but she is the secretary. She took the notes. We will review the minutes whenever she gets them out, and then we'll publish them. And we have a backlog on the previous minutes, I think, which we should be able to get out about the same time. So for the special meeting that we had, whatever it was last week.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And let's see. So we spoke. I think we had all of the items of business there on the board meeting. We have, there was one item that was an educational item or an informational item that Steve Ross Talbot brought up. Essentially, if I understand it correctly, Steve uncovered that the UK government, the highest science recommendation from the UK government is recommending that the UK government get involved in blockchain, and that they are seeking blockchain that is provably correct, scalable, sustainable, and energy efficient. Remind you of anything? So Steve is reaching out to the representatives who put out the document with this call for participation, and we should be able to broker a meeting in the not too distant future. So that was an informational that showed up on the board meeting. I was particularly excited by this because I think we're starting to see, the UK seems to be more progressive on a number of fronts, right? So I believe that the top legislatures in the UK have already voted for climate crisis, and I think that there's a convergence between that thinking and the UK's technological advancement thinking for the use of blockchain to begin to address some of the concerns that are going to be raised there in terms of coordination technologies. So that feels like we have begun to position ourselves in the right way. I think that covers it with respect to the board. You'll see from the minutes if I missed anything, but those minutes should be out in the next few days. We do have an obligation on the Q1 financials. I've got a draft in my inbox. We also wanted to make sure that draft lines up with the Ledger Pro folks. The Ledger Pro people needed access to the crypto wallets or summaries of the crypto wallets. So we've gotten them that information, and so that will allow us to reconcile the draft I have from the folks at Hunt Jackson with the Ledger Pro folks and get those out. Sorry for the delay on that. I was actually unaware that there was a disconnect with Ledger Pro on the access to the reports on the crypto wallets. So we just closed that gap, and we should be able to get those documents out relatively quickly. So I think that's it on the business side. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Going once? Oh, okay.
Just one question, Greg. When will you guys be back from Poland?
I fly back on Friday. I don't know if Kent ever flies back.
Kent's never flying back. We're done with our agenda on Friday.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a request for the team members to introduce themselves?
Yeah, Rick is asking, can we have the devs state their name? This is an option.
Just, a wave of a hand.
I did already, so I'm done. Hello, hi. You've seen me.
we have some shy Dev here.
I'm Adam. I'm from the SRE team. I'm Tomasz, also known as Wookie. I'm Pavel, communications, now Casper apparently, keeping Ken hostage.
Hi, I'm Sebastian. I'm also working on Come Later.
Arthur, Roland team, and everything else.
Soon also rolling to
Ovidio, contracts, all right. I'm Łukasz, working on several things. Workspace, actually.
And Kayvon's now moving over to core platform stuff to help us get this final push done. And we all know Kent.
Being held hostage in Poland.
You know me.
Yeah. All right. So with that, we'll sign off. Thanks, guys. Look forward to talking.